These are killers, these are murderers, and we got to know them fully well after the 8th and the 9th of January massacre. So obviously, if you were a realist, you wouldn't believe the narrative that they would be overthrown overnight.
I've spoken to what seemed to be a very small minority of voices who say, carpet bomb it all and then we'll rebuild. I'm not in that camp, and I don't think it's helpful to take out a bunch of power plants so we don't have working hospitals in Iran. Let's be very clear about that.
We understand there is no electricity, there is no drinking water, but at least we are living with hope. And one day in future, these kids would have a better life.
The people of Iran are asking us to be their voice and to tell the world leaders this regime has got to go.
Hi there. The Islamic Republic regime is bringing in foreign fighters from Iraq, from Afghanistan, from elsewhere, not to fight against Western intervention, but to help control and suppress the Iranian people on their own streets. Let's pause on this and think about it. Outsourcing repression. What does it mean when a government cannot rely on the citizens of its own country to enforce its rule? What does it mean when a regime looks at its own population and decides they're not loyal enough, they're not obedient enough, they're not brutal enough, and cannot be trusted, so it has to go elsewhere? Outsourcing repression. And there we have it. In recent months, we've heard reports and seen credible footage of militia fighters tied to the regime's regional proxy network, brought into Iran, not to defend the country from foreign invasion, not to protect borders, but to stand against Iranians. Imagine that for a second. Imagine living here in Canada and seeing armed men brought in from another country, telling you what you can say, where you can go, how far you can push back. It's not even close to legitimate governance. It's a brutal form of ultimate occupation to help suppress dissent and reinforce control, and to do what perhaps too many inside Iran would refuse to do to their own people. And think about what that says. A government that can't trust its own citizens to enforce its authority is not governing a nation, it is occupying one. The Iraqi Popular Mobilization Forces, the Afghan and Pakistani brigades in the thousands, outsourcing repression. Look, if you believed in your people, you wouldn't need to import loyalty. If you believed in your legitimacy, you wouldn't need foreign boots on your streets. If you believed in your future, you wouldn't be preparing for your own citizens as if they were the enemy. And yet, here we are. A ceasefire has been declared. The headlines suggest calm. The maps show fewer explosions. But beneath the surface, the machinery of control does not slow down. It adapts and prepares and recalibrates. And surely this is what fragile regimes do. They don't relax when things go quiet. They get ready. And in this case, outsourcing repression. And maybe that is the real story of this moment, not the illusion of calm, but the quiet preparations behind it. Look, a regime that needs to import its enforcers has already told you everything you need to know. It doesn't trust the people. And maybe a regime that does not trust its people is a regime that knows its time is running out. It's April 13, 2026. This is Roqe. Hi there, welcome to episode 430 of Roqe, Iran Rises. I'm Jian Ghomeshi. Hello to you from Toronto. Salam Dostan Aziz. Durud bar shoma. I hope you're doing okay wherever you are tuning in from around the world. This is the 26th episode in our Iran Rises series, this one entitled The Illusion of Calm. Now, once again, events inside Iran and around the Iranian diaspora, as you know, are moving at breakneck speed. So we should note that we are recording this episode at approximately 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time here in Toronto on this Monday, April 13th. That's around midnight in Iran. And as always, we're sharing perspectives and conversations as up to date as humanly possible. Now, coming up on this 430th edition of Roqe, so a ceasefire has been declared, but the talks have broken down. The threat of escalation is back on the table. and what looks like calm is probably anything but. The regime is issuing threats. Trump is tweeting like mad. Executions are proceeding. Atrocities show no signs of receding. The world waits to find out what is next. So where are we really? Is this a pause or the prelude to something much bigger? We have quite a panel today. Ali Hamedani in London, Shayan Sami'i in Washington, and Sadeq Bigdeli here in Toronto. Three sharp voices to help us make sense of this moment and, more importantly, how Iranians should be seeing it. Let's get to it. All right, everybody, let me tell you about Quasar Homes. Today's edition of Roqe is brought to you in part by Quasar Homes. So Quasar is a name synonymous with quality and detail and innovation in Toronto's custom home building and major renovations. Founded and led by Amir Firouz, Quasar Homes has become a trusted choice for families who want exceptional craftsmanship and a seamless building experience. With a passion for creating homes that combine elegance and comfort and functionality, Amir and his team continue to raise the standard of living for homeowners across this city and beyond. They're particularly committed to environmental awareness and sustainability. They also happen to be the sponsors of the Roqe Media Icon Award. If you're in the Greater Toronto area and you're looking to build, consider Quasar. Check them out at Quasar Homes on Instagram. Quasar Homes. Let's talk about the best chocolates you can find in this city. This episode of Roqe is brought to you with the support of Avoca Chocolates. So in the last few weeks, I've been telling you how grateful we are that this small non-Iranian company in Toronto has stepped up to support Iranians in this time. Noni Fembi and her staff at Avoca have been making handmade artisanal chocolate in Toronto for over 30 years. Family owned and operated, they've dedicated themselves to the art of making delicious treats, including truffles and ice cream and gelato. Made without compromise, Avoca has focused on high quality ingredients with fair trade chocolate, all made fresh daily in one of their 2 locations in East Toronto. If you're in Toronto, go visit one of their great chocolate shops and thank them for their support. Taste their delicious handmade chocolates. If you can't go in person, you can get their chocolates and products online at avocachocolates.com. avocachocolates.com. Thank you again, Avoca. All right, let's get to our panel for today. He is an Iranian-British journalist, broadcaster, activist. His roles as a presenter, reporter, and producer have extended across various BBC platforms as well as Manoto Television. He is also the co-founder of the UK's only Persian language radio. Beyond journalism, he is deeply committed to nurturing the next generation of media professionals, training and mentoring hundreds of aspiring journalists, especially in Iran and Afghanistan. Ali Hamedani joins us from London, England. Joining us from the Washington, D.C. area, one of our esteemed regulars here on Roqe. He is a U.S. national security analyst and a Near East Africa and South Asia expert specializing in strategic communications. You may have seen him on various Persian news outlets such as Iran International. He has been a regular for us here on Roqe since the beginning of the Lion and Sun Revolution. Shayan Sami'i joins us from Vienna, Virginia. And he is a Toronto-based lawyer, but his work and his voice reach far beyond the courtroom. In recent years, he has emerged as a clear and uncompromising advocate for Iranian human rights, challenging disinformation, calling out legal and moral evasions, and translating outrage into arguments grounded in law and principle. He also knows the regime of the Islamic Republic all too well, having spent some time within that system, and can give us precious insights as such. Sadeq Bigdeli joins us from Toronto. Hello to you all.
Thank you.
Hello. Thanks for having us.
This is a conversation that is not an easy one because we're running a race with one leg or something, whatever the analogy is, in the sense that there's so much ambiguity around what's happening right now. I think people will forgive you if you can't pinpoint exactly where you think things are going, but this has been a daily exercise now for a few months, and I know you all have a lot to say. So first of all, what is at top of mind for today in terms of the battle for freedom in Iran, and the global attention on the war that continues? And given the title of this episode, The Illusion of Calm, do you agree that any sense or moments of calm or pause right now are illusory? Let's start with you, Shayan.
First and foremost, Jian, thank you for having me, and it's such a delight to be with my co-panelists on this program. To answer your question, yes, it is illusory. Yes, we do not know what's going to take place. Yes, we have a lot of ambiguities, but top of the mind, as you mentioned and as you directed me to respond, I want to know where the people of Iran are on these all these discussions and meetings and conversations. Nobody seems to be talking about the people of Iran and their plight and what they want. It seems like the United States is just focused on uh, the nuclear issue, the missiles, and the Strait of Hormuz. The Iranian side is just concerned about how we keep ourselves above water and keep going and basically continue the Islamic regime. Nobody is talking about the fact that almost 50,000 people have given their lives and they want and they're asking for this regime to be no more. And the world community seems to be not understanding this. And then we have a whole bunch of yahoos amongst the Iranians in diaspora who are just losing the focus on the real issue and sticking to some things that are irrelevant at the moment.
Okay.
I'm going to stop here and then we'll expand later.
There's a lot there, but what a great answer to the question of what's top of mind. Sadeq, what's top of mind, and is this an illusion of calm?
Oh yeah, I mean you can look at the stock markets, oil markets, and the illusion of calm is actually, I think, created or fabricated by President no one other than President Trump. He creates this illusion in order to control the world market, oil markets, and everything for political purposes, domestic political purposes. He needs to do that in order to be able to carry on. So I'll be very brief. We know what's happening in the Strait of Hormuz in the Persian Gulf as we speak. And again, we saw this morning that President Trump said that I received these messages from Iranians. They want to make a deal so badly, which again refabricates the illusion of calm because it's Monday and he needs to take care of the markets. But we know just 2 days ago, after 21 hours of so-called negotiations, which was nothing other than the Islamic Republic officials at the highest level meeting with meeting with
VP.
JD Vance,
Yeah.
which has never happened before. The mere fact that they showed up in Islamabad meant that Trump's tactic is working, and so again, humiliation, posturing of negotiation for calming the markets, and threatening them right militarily, right into in the ground in the Persian Gulf geopolitically. This is what he does in order to make sure that this is sustainable. I mean, that's what I can tell you as a 2 cents.
Okay. Ali, your first thoughts?
I keep thinking over the past couple of days when people most of the people are trying to understand what Trump is saying. I keep thinking about how we are going to deal with the PTSD of our society after this. I was talking to a friend of mine in Iran who managed to connect to the internet using a very expensive VPN. And I asked him this very simple question: how are you? How is the city? He's in Tehran. And I wrote down what he said. He said, the city, this ceasefire smells like gunpowder blended with the smell of spring blossoms. And when I think about it, when I think about the fact that then he said, as soon as we hear the word ceasefire, we try to make sense of life. We try to have some normality for a couple of hours because we knew this is not going to last long. And I think everybody inside the country is expecting another round of something, which could be an all-out war, which could be a limited war, which could be another attack, which could be some idiotic operation by Iranian regime. I think when I talk to people, the uncertainty is what bothering everyone, including us here as well.
Yeah, well said. Listen, I don't want to spend too much time on talk about JD Vance and Pakistan and delegations and talks and things like that, because it is something you can find on other outlets that seem to be just talking about that 24/7, to Shayan's point. But I do have a question that it may be tragically naive, but I don't shy away from asking naive questions. Why wouldn't the Islamic Republic regime, if we all agree that they're weakened and they're desperate to survive this, not just salvos from Israel and the U.S., but the enmity of the mass majority of the Iranian people, if the regime wants to survive, why doesn't it make a deal? Why doesn't it just agree to whatever it needs to agree to continue going? Sadeq?
Okay, this is my lived experience, and my final conclusion after all these years of contemplating on this very issue, which is the Islamic Republic has a great survival techniques, and they are survivors. Unfortunately, they have been for 47 years. And they are pragmatic within an ideological context. What is the role of ideology in the Islamic Republic? Survival. They need the ideologically frantic zombie people in order to survive, because if they are not there, there's no way that you can basically conquer 90+% of your community and society. The people who were on the streets during the 40-day wars and who were willing to die for their cause, they are their basically last resort that they have. So they can't easily give up on ideology. And the problem with the negotiations is they have to give up that very essential tool that has helped them survive. If they give it up, they can't survive. They have to confront the Iranian people. And if they don't give it up, they have to confront Trump and Netanyahu and the Western democracies. So it's a very, very
so their fidelity, their fidelity to that Islamist ideology, or whatever you want to call it, trumps, if you'll excuse the term, is bests the idea of actually just making a deal to survive.
Yeah. So there are the so-called pragmatists, those who just don't want to die. You see from the Javad Zarif or even Ghalibaf, as we see, they haven't been targeted because probably they are the ones who are potentially there to make a deal. But there are also those who are sitting behind the launchers and they're on the streets and they're being targeted, and they are the most fanatical people. How do you make a balance in order to satisfy these people and at the same time make a deal is kind of an impossible situation to be in for the Islamic Republic, and that's what gives me hope. So hopefully they can't reach that deal.
Ali, do you want to weigh in on that?
I think it is really important to understand and also remember that the miscalculations by this regime and also the similar regimes like Saddam's always led to this very point. They keep miscalculating the moment. They keep miscalculating the future. They keep miscalculating the person or the people they are dealing with, because they truly believe their own lies. That is one problem. And I think the other thing is, I think the two sides are trying to set the benchmark here, because again, the Iranian side, the Islamic regime side, based on their miscalculation, they think President Trump has a World Cup to deal with. President Trump has a midterm election to deal with. President Trump needs to deal with the fuel prices in his country. So he's not going to do it. Before this war, I was reading here and there that one of the reasons that the regime kept delaying the negotiations was, the US doesn't dare to attack us during Ramadan. They're not going to do it. And then it is going to be our Nowruz. They are not going to do it for the sake of their own popularity among Iranian people. And it happened. And again, they are miscalculating everything. And also, I echo what just Sadeq said. I think the fact that this is their ideology, they really now need that core of supporters who go out every single night and protest to show their support for the regime. And I'm sure you've heard that some of them were chanting against Ghalibaf, were chanting against the negotiations. They are saying you are dealing or you are negotiating, you're meeting deputy of the murderer of our beloved supreme leader and Haj Qasem Soleimani.
But
how dare?
But Ali, in terms of believing their own hype, I mean, we hear a couple of different things, you know, from the ever curious Iranian community around the world speculating on this. One, that the regime is on the run, desperately, you know, freaked out, basically, and desperate for survival. The other, that they believe they're winning. So which is it? The hype that do they actually think they're winning?
I think they are saying, I don't know if you have watched the film Death of Stalin, which is based on his true story. As soon as, even after he was dead, people around him were acting as if he was still alive, believing their own lies. So that is one thing. Yes, of course, they need to survive, and this is how they are dealing with that. That is my point, Jiharjan. Their logic looks like this. Yes, they are desperate to get a deal, but that's how they are doing it. And remember, it is also coming from that downtown Tehran culture too. You are weak. People are beating you. You're losing. You are in blood, but you still say things to make the other side angrier. That is what they are doing.
Okay. Shayan?
Jian, the fact of the matter is, negotiations means I sit across the table from you, I give you something, you give me something, and then we call it a day. For these bunch of people, they don't want to give anything, because for them, survival means keeping ideology alive. How do they keep the ideology alive? By just repeating the same damn lies over and over again until it becomes true. As it has many times been said, in the absence of real water, people will accept a mirage as water. So people are accepting this mirage that these guys are selling. I'm not saying the entirety of the population, but that 5-10% of yahoos who are on the street every night yelling and screaming that they want to go kill Zarif, they want to kill Ghalibaf. Why? Because they sat across the table from the killer of their beloved supreme leader. So the argument is, we are not going to be meeting with a bunch of people who accept facts. Their facts are steeped in ideology that, hey, if we keep this Shiite thing going, we have already won. And we are driving the other side crazy because they keep thinking, what is the logic for us? Whereas we do not have a logic. Our success is by not having a logic. So that's how they are beating the world community. Now, one thing that the U.S. side has, at least in this round of negotiations, was able to do was to push back and not allow Ghalibaf to get a word in that we are responsible for Lebanon. Basically, they wanted to contain the Iranian side to the Iranian issue. No matter how much they try, they're not going to win because the Iranian side just wants to keep the ideology going.
Let me shift from the regime to the Iranian people that Shayan, you were speaking about, and to a certain extent what's happening, the views of the Iranian people inside Iran has to be speculative. I mean, we can all talk to our friends, our sources, our families inside Iran, but we have a better grip on the diaspora, at least. How much do you believe that the growing length of this exercise, the trauma of the bombings that inside Iran they would hear, you know, at the building next door, outside of Iran it's almost scarier, wondering, you know, where they're dropping, what's happening to people, and then of course some of the animated language like Back to the Stone Age and End of Civilization. a lot of that, since the war began at least, has given oxygen to folks who either are carrying water for the regime in the West, as you all know, or have been skittish about it to say, look, this is a terrible thing, etc. But there also seem to be people who, I would say, a month ago, there seemed to be general, if not unanimity, a general majority of people who are pro-intervention, who now may be asking questions about, well, what is this the right idea? And you'll see certain artists or commentator types coming out and saying, look, all of you that said that we should do this, now he's talking about end of civilization. Do you believe where we're at this point has siphoned away support in the Iranian community from intervention in the form of the U.S. and Israel, etc.? Sadeq?
Oh, that's a difficult question you're asking me. Listen, there might be certain segments of the society that we used to call the gray, segments of the society who might be coming back because obviously everyone wanted this regime to go. I mean, by everyone, I mean the super majority of Iranian people, not part of the regime. Okay. But then some people had what I even used to call it an illusion of them going away easily, like overnight being overthrown, and that's going to be an easy job to do. I mean, I was one of the realists who always said, I mean, having known the Islamic Republic, that there is some substantial support. I mean, hundreds of thousands of people. Shayan just said 5 to 10%. Hopefully, it's less than 5, but there is substantial support, and they're not going to go anywhere. So it's going to be a tough job because these are killers, these are murderers, and we got to know them fully well after the 8th and the 9th of January massacre. So obviously, if you were a realist, you wouldn't believe the narrative that they would be overthrown overnight, or they would be somehow collapsed internally, and then everything would be a peaceful transition. So yeah, wishful thinking. If those who were part of that crowd, they might think that, oh, what's going to happen if even especially after Trump's last Tuesday tweet or through social that civilization will end tonight. Now he interpreted that tweet, as you know, yesterday, I think, that he said, I just had to say it so that I bring them down back to the negotiating table. And then what he said was interesting. He also said that for 47 years they have been shouting death to America. Nobody said anything to them. And then I just used the civilization as a word to encourage them to negotiate, and all of a sudden everybody's getting back at me. It was an inappropriate thing to say. It was unacceptable, but that's his trick. That's how he negotiates. So at the end of the day, yes, I believe segments of the population, if they believe, especially if they believe that there's a chance for the Islamic Republic to survive and the infrastructure of the society to be ruined, that is the scenario that they are very much afraid of. But if they believe that after a short-term difficulty, they will definitely be overthrown and the economy will go back and Iran will be great again, I think everybody would, I mean, the supermajority would be still on board. So that's where the situation lies, whether the Islamic Republic will stay or not. So why are we going through this war and death if they are going to negotiate, if there's a chance for them to survive? I think that's the main question, not the war itself.
Shayan, are you seeing a siphoning of in as much as we had what can come as close to unanimity or unity as, I mean, 500,000 people in Toronto is a pretty big showing in terms of, and I was there and it was one flag and it was a relatively unified chance. So and I'm not sure that we're there today necessarily, and I want to be real about this. You say what?
I say the willpower for the people of Iran has remained the same, that they want this regime gone. They are telling us over and over again, in as limited of a communication capability that they have, is that do whatever the heck you can to drive home the message that no deal with the mullahs. We don't want this regime to survive. But one thing that remains is that we also have to decipher what Donald Trump says in his messages and how to interpret those. For example, one interpretation of the ending of the civilization was that, and I think this is quite a valid point, that Trump was referring to Khomeini's statement as he came to power. Why do I say that? Is because of the reference to the 47 years of death, destruction, and poverty for the people of Iran. As Khomeini came to power, he said, we do not have an Iranian civilization anymore. We have an Islamic civilization. So I think that was also one of the references that was made. But because Donald Trump talks in a very convoluted way, you have to, it's like an onion, you have to peel it and peel it and peel it to get to the core of it. But I think the people of Iran are still in favor of this regime being gone. They are willing to sacrifice more what they have been doing. One thing is that there are a few that I call apologists who are, whether inside or outside, but their lives are not going to be disrupted, or their lives are not going to be bad, whether this regime survives or not. So they are saying, don't touch anything, don't attack the infrastructure. But if you directly ask the people of Iran, would you rather have a couple of power plants be destroyed, but this regime also be gone? Would you take that? I would predict, and I would submit to you, that 95% would say yes.
Ali?
Oh, wow. I wish I was the first person to answer this question, because now it is very difficult. Okay, I will give my opinion, but
who made it more difficult?
Oh, Shayan John. I think one of the most important things is politicians, it is in their nature to choose the easiest way out. So if negotiations concludes in some sort of deal and Trump is happy, he will go away and he's happy. So when he says, I actually say, I would take whatever he says. If he says, tonight is going to be, a civilization is going to die, I would go and say, hey, because he's trying to basically set his benchmark. He's saying what he's saying. He doesn't care about our sensitivities. He doesn't care about what he says. He may not know. He might have meant Islamic civilization. He might have meant Iranian civilization. What I would say is, we as Iranians have dignity. We should be sensitive. We should react. Instead of turning these things to gossips, oh, I told you if a war breaks, this is going to be the outcome, I would say, don't say that to me. Go on and talk about it. Because I think we need to react. That's how we show our sensitivities. That's how we show our goals. That's how we show President Trump and all other politicians where we stand when it comes to all of these things. So I was one of those people who actually said, hey, dude, listen, you cannot do anything to my civilization. If you meant something else, clarify. If you don't, I would take what you just said. So if CENTCOM decides to call the Persian Gulf the Arabian Gulf, which they keep doing it, I know it is very minor. I know it is a small detail in the whole picture, but I actually go and say, hey, I do not recognize where you're talking about. So the blockade is going to happen somewhere which actually doesn't exist on international maps. Can you clarify that? I think we have to be active. Yes, many people have asked for support, but that doesn't mean we give away our power. This is our power. This is what we can do. This is where we should show our sensitivity, our standards, our dignity, what we want for our future. If we leave politicians to do, as I said, they are going to find the easiest way out, as I think President Trump could also do. Regarding what Shayan...
Well, actually, before you get to that, I just want to know if Sadeq or Shayan want to respond to that at all.
No, I want to hear the rest of his...
Okay.
Yeah. Just very quickly, I mean, we have to, whatever action we take, I completely appreciate Ali's position, but we don't have the luxury of putting out our emotions or in a way that is not necessarily to the interest of the country. So I want to make that small point. The only reason why the US and Israel did not attack Iran's infrastructure, whereas the Islamic Republic did all the time, every single day of the war, attack the single infrastructure of the 15 days they attacked, was because we managed to distinguish between the Iranian people and the Islamic regime. That is the only way. It's not the logic of war not to touch the other countries' infrastructure where they are attacking your infrastructure. I mean, I'm not talking about the law and international law. This is the logic of war. And Israel is not known for not attacking, the enemy's infrastructure. So the only reason they did that is because they think the Iranian people are the allies of them in the future. And so that is the picture we shouldn't distort in the minds of those politicians that I fully agree with you. They want a quick way out.
But Sadeq John, if it gets distorted, if that happens, also we should talk about it. Because of the same reason, because we should say this to the Western countries, to President Trump, to the US administration, that, hey, actually you are making a new enemy.
Yeah, no, I fully agree that you can bring this to their attention. The way that you do it, although, could be very consequential. The way that the pro-Islamic regime people do, like Persian goals, Persian history, and the way that we as Trump's ally, like that's what I'm making sure of. Because if it crosses the line of becoming what Trump calls Trump derangement syndrome, then all of a sudden he will forget about appreciating the Iranian people, which he did even at the end of that tweet. And that has consequences for us as a civilization. I mean, words are words. But in this very sensitive situation, historical moments that we are in, we don't have the luxury of having it all. We have to decide what we want to do. And I think we have to protect our civilization in practice rather than talking in the way that the Islamic regime does, always saying things, but at the same time, you know what happened to Gaza was the people of Gaza were supportive of Hamas. And that's why Israel did some distinction, but at the end of the day, it didn't really mind what happened to Gaza. And the reason Iran is not Gaza yet is because they really want to go to extreme in order to make sure that the Iranian people are on their side. That's the only thing that I wanted to mention to you. I'm okay with bringing things to their attention. Shahzad, the Crown Prince, as well, put out that tweet about Iran's infrastructure. But the way that we do it, we have to make sure that they don't conceive of us as changing our minds, becoming anti-American, anti-Israel, because if we did that, they might reduce their sensitivity.
Well, that's my whole point. That's my whole point, though. I'm saying we need to actually underline to the fact that some of the actions could turn people to anti-American or anti-West or anti-whatever. That's what I meant. The other thing, Shayan John, last night, interestingly, I was in a show and somebody called from inside Iran. And the lady was talking about the fact, and I totally understand where she was coming from. I was about to cry, actually, when she was talking. She was calling from, I think, Shiraz. And she was saying that she is so tired of life. She's so frustrated. She has a little baby. And she was saying that she's hoping that even if Iran gets destroyed, all infrastructure gets destroyed, at least the baby would have a future. And then I asked her a question. I said, how long do you think it will take after the regime change, after that referendum? How long would it take for the country to basically be a country you would like to leave, or you dream? And she said 5 months. You see, we need to be very careful with that, because the reason that we are saying do not go after infrastructure is not because we care about bricks. It's because we do know it will make it more difficult for us in future to rebuild them under a new regime. It will delay our dreams. It will delay our hopes. I spent time in Afghanistan, and I remember my colleagues, my friends had too many babies. I was like, why do you have too many kids? And they were like, Ali John, you know what? We understand there's no electricity, there's no drinking water, but at least we are living with hope. And one day in future, these kids would have a better life. I do understand that. I do understand that. But at the same time, what worries me the most is the attack on infrastructures, which I do understand it is part of any war, could delay our dreams.
Can I just
that's the only thing.
Ali, there's another side to this, though, that let me just inject this in there as a longtime political junkie and as somebody sitting in the West who's watched Trump closely for the last 10 years, as I'm sure we all have. And it's kind of, if you've watched him for 10 years, I mean, I interviewed him, 15 years ago. He hasn't changed that much. He is prone to bluster and histrionics and wild statements. And we kind of, I feel, need to navigate this stuff a little bit too, in the sense that knowing that, the more attention sometimes we give to some of his most bellicose, tweets, for example, the more oxygen we're taking away from a focus on, as Shayan said at the beginning of this conversation, the Iranian people. Then we're in this conversation about, is this going to be the end of civilization or not, based on a tweet, rather than actually 45,000 people being murdered in 2 days by the regime in January, right? So that's the tough place to navigate. I mean, for all the talk about infrastructure, and I'm not saying, I agree that it would be unhelpful at the very least to be taking out. I mean, I've spoken to what seemed to be a very small minority of voices who say, carpet bomb it all and then we'll rebuild. I'm not in that camp, and I don't think it's helpful to take out a bunch of power plants so we don't have working hospitals in Iran. Let's be very clear about that. But it hasn't happened so far. So all of the hair on fire has been about Trump's tweets, which, if you live close to the United States, that's kind of been the game for the last 10 years, right?
And Jian, the reason is we are talking about it. We've been talking about it. We were pushing back. We were saying, don't do it. Don't do it. People could do their own. When that moment arrives, people know what to do. Don't do it. And the reason, I think one of the reasons that didn't happen is because of the great works by all of my fellow panelists. We have been talking about it. We were so clear about what we want. And I think that is the only thing we should do. We have to be super clear about what we want. Keep talking and keep talking and keep talking about it. Keep pushing back. They want the easiest way out of this. And we should not make it easy for them. We should say, no. This is what we ask for. You want to support us? This is what we want. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. Shayan, did you want to get in on this? Or can I go ahead?
One thing we have to keep in mind, none of us in this panel is here to sell any dreams. We are here to talk about realities. And reality is that the people of Iran are asking us to be their voice and to tell the world leaders, this regime has got to go. This regime is not in their favor, and this regime has never been doing things for the people of Iran. But I also agree, we have to have some kind of a messaging to the world community and world leaders to make them understand the nuances. One thing that we have to also keep in mind is that, at least here in the United States, we have regime supporters who are organized, they have access to the media, and they're actually running. For example, Ghalibaf's communication team is sitting somewhere in Los Angeles, California. So we have to also remind the world leaders that these guys are using the apparatus provided to them in a free world to talk about closing freedom and suppressing freedom for the people of Iran. So to make the long story short, I think what we have to do is we have to express our perspectives and our point of views, but that only comes if we in the outside are united and work behind the scenes on different channels that we can make with the politicians. For example, one way that we have here in the United States, go knock on the door of each senator and congressman. They will talk, they will respond, as we have done many times. And I think that's the best way, instead of using the bombast that the Islamic regime wants us to do in the media, to keep talking about something and create division. We can take a step back, take it directly to these decision makers, and let them know what we truly want.
That's actually a great segue to something I wanted to get to, and that is how we speak to Westerners. If we've talked about the regime and we've talked about the Iranian people, now let's talk about the global community and people in the West who are kind of looking at this cockeyed and going, you see it. You don't need me to tell you every day on the news. Well, what is this for? Why are they doing this? What is it? And Shayan, at the beginning of this conversation, you said 50,000, tens of thousands have been killed in Iran, and where's the we have to focus the Western world on these obvious atrocities, and to a certain extent, I just think that's a tough ask. It's a tough ask to get somebody. I mean, I don't want to say they don't give a care or it's not their problem, etc. But that's basically the attitude. I don't know that we're going to convince somebody in Kentucky who's worried about their food prices and gas prices, etc., that they should start caring about human rights inside Iran, etc. So I think there's a certain amount of the population that we're just never going to get that are in that category. But I had an interesting encounter today that this morning, and I thought when I had the encounter, I thought, this is something that I'm going to bring to the panel and ask you how you would respond to this. And this was a woman who I see at the gym, who is I think she's involved politically with the Liberal Party in Canada. I'm not sure, but she, she had an interesting position, which was based on even having conversations with me a few times in the last couple of months about. So she's informed about the fact that thousands are being killed inside Iran. She's informed about the atrocities of this regime. She's not the 20% of Gen Z in Canada that's actually supporting the Islamic Republic regime at this point for wild ideological reasons, but she said, look, I'm compassionate about the plight of the Iranian people, and I want I would support some kind of Western help, but I don't support this war because I simply don't trust Trump to be able to pull this off. Too impulsive, mercurial, self-involved, not a rational actor on the global scene. So I just think this will continue to be a mess for everybody, including the Iranian people. Not the right guy to be trying to pull this off. So here's somebody who wants to help the Iranian people, but is looking at Trump and saying, this is not my guy, and I just don't believe that this is going to be the way to work. And I ask this because I think there probably are people watching this right now who maybe don't want to get on Instagram and Twitter and make that point, but may feel that way. And I want to know what your response to this woman would be. Sadeq.
Look, I don't think there's any way we can convince these people. These people hate Trump. These people hate Netanyahu. And at the end of the day, their governments, like in Canada, there's no way that they will support a cause that would promote Trump's prospect in the US politics or whoever is going to replace Trump. So it's a real war in geopolitics between the global right and the global left. And I don't think this is an easy one. Like, you can convince people. Psychologically, it's impossible, it seems to me. And politically, the bridge is, I think it's very, very difficult to bridge the gap.
So she's a lost cause? She's a lost cause? We can't, I mean, because she's compassionate.
We have limited political and social capital, John. That's what I say. So we have to focus our energies where there's return. And I don't think we can get to the point with these people to support you so openly so that it would have an impact in the politics of countries like Canada, UK, so that it would make a change in time for us Iranian people inside outside Iran to bring that.
But
change.
she's the kind of person who's preventing Carney from actually taking a moral stand on this, right? She's the kind of person. She's saying, because you can take a moral position and say, well, I care about the Iranian people, but this is crazy what they're trying to do. Like, we don't trust this guy, right? So it's actually kind of a way of getting,
I understand, but it depends on your interpretation of Carney. Whether it's the reason he is not pro-war is because his base, which is partly true, but I think it's deeper than that. The liberals and the global left, like the Democrats, like the UK, they are just not going to be in line with any cause that would promote Trump's cause. So I think it's, sorry, I might be pessimistic, but it's kind of a lost cause to me.
Okay, Ali, what would you do in that situation?
Yeah, actually, I think one of the things that I do is actually talk to people. I think as soon as, from Ubers, the trips, it's very common, right? As soon as they see your name, they ask where you are from, and they also, I'm so sorry, brother. And then I'm like, tell me more. What do you want to know? I really am interested to know what you know. So they start, oh yeah, there is a war. Netanyahu attacked, America attacked. And then I think as the minimum we could do is we could put this in a context for them. You could hate Netanyahu. You could call Netanyahu a criminal. But even with those with those glosses, let's think that they are right. Netanyahu, let's just think he's a criminal. Sure. Okay. But that's how desperate Iranian people are. Think about that. And I keep saying it. Okay, brother, my Muslim brother, Netanyahu to you is a criminal. But that's how desperate we are as Iranians. Because 40,000 of us got killed over 2 nights. We didn't have any other way. Nothing. It shows how desperate we are. We are fighting for our rights.
دارن یه چیزی دیگه میگن. اینا میگن که these guys are not capable of, look at this is a shit show. So you're not going to get what you want. They're not just saying, I don't support anything with Trump. They're saying, listen, don't be a fool here. My response to her was, look, exactly what you just said. I said, even if you think this is a Hail Mary, it's better than the status quo with this regime, if there's a chance, right? But it's a very sly argument, but it is one to say, listen, it's not going to work out the way you want it. This guy is incompetent. Look how crazy he is.
You don't know what we went. They don't know what we went through. You don't know what we went through. You don't know what you're going through. You were not with me when I was 22 in a jail cell. So I think Iranian people are wise. They chose something and they know how to control and take advantage. And this is our history. Over the past 6,000 years, we showed we could do it. And this has not been our first time in our history that we were invaded by people like the Islamic regime, and we are trying to survive. We know how to do it. It's in our cells. It is in our DNA. We know how to deal with it. We are not... We had, it is in our blood. We had this experience. And just look how we are. Giarjan, last year when we were talking about Bashar al-Assad, I remember that we were having a conversation. And you ask, do you think this is going to happen to Khamenei? None of us could guess. A protest could happen. People go on streets to say, President Trump, come and support us. And Iranian supreme leader Khamenei gets killed. None of us could have seen these days.
Well, Alijan, you're trying to convince us. We are already convinced. But those people that you talked, like a Muslim cab driver, they even question the narrative that you're putting out there. They don't believe, our narrative. They're reading Al Jazeera, New York Times, whatever. Names I don't want to name.
At least I put my narrative out.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great. But I gave up my own battle with these people.
Shayan?
Can I go back to the Canada example that you mentioned? One thing in geopolitics, we also have to understand limitations of each government. Right now, the Carney government is not a majority government, but today they might become a majority government as there's the by-elections that's going on. If he has a majority government, he can breathe a little bit more, and he can perhaps lay off of the bombast against Donald Trump. I'm not saying Donald Trump is the easiest person to deal with, but we also have to bring the narrative to the people, to the politicians, and to the lady that you mentioned. We have to make them understand that if we don't act now, this could be a repeat of what happened in Vancouver of the terrorist attack that everybody in Canada was flabbergasted. So we have to bring and refocus and recalibrate this problem that if we do not deal with Islamic terrorism, that the Islamic regime in Tehran is broadcasting and propagating, then at some point you will have it in your own homeland. And I think by continuously bringing this up and repeating it, I agree with Sadeq that the likes of New York Times and the so-called Iranian reporters that New York Times has, but they are more in line with the Islamic Republic than being in line with the Constitution of the United States. But we still have a chance to win the hearts and minds one day at a time by refocusing our narrative. So mark my words, this lady that you mentioned, if you go back and bring up the subject of what happened in Vancouver, she might think twice about what she told you.
Sorry, which incident? There's a couple of things. What specifically explain what you're talking about with respect to Vancouver?
I think there was a terrorist act in Vancouver that some 20 people were either injured or killed. I don't remember exactly the details right now, but it was a few weeks ago.
I mean, even more immediately, we can talk about the fact that there's been very clear evidence we have the legal evidence that there are cells or supporters or agents of the Islamic Republic regime operating here in Toronto, for example, and up to all kinds of nefarious things, including shooting up
and even a couple of
gyms
the
and
foreign exchange companies that are on Young and Shepherd.
Yeah, it's very, very worrisome, all of that. I'm so grateful to the three of you for making time on this. Let me ask you a question that I like to end with, and that I think is particularly relevant this week because there is so much ambiguity in terms of how to even think about where this is going. What will you be most focusing on in the coming days as a barometer of how this situation is evolving? What will you be looking for? Let's start with Ali and then Shayan and then last word to Sadeq.
I mean, I have this very weird habit of reading the state newspapers, and I think the reason that I do that is basically that will brings me what all of these authorities from MPs to deputy of ministers say. And I think the anger they are showing plus what they think it's their honor and their narrative is the best way of understanding where the regime is heading to. And to me, at this very moment, they are trying to sell and also believe that they won and they will win. And as soon as a regime like the Islamic Republic thinks like that, that is the end. Because that's where Saddam was. When he invaded Kuwait and the international coalition started the attack, he said, look, Saddam Hussein is the greatest power on earth. Do you know why? Because 30 odd countries decided to invade Iraq. And we stood against them. And that's where we are with Islamic Republic.
So specifically, what is it that you're hoping to see?
Ooh.
I mean, what would be a barometer? What would be a marker, a trigger of seeing that kind of weakness, that kind of distorted thinking that you're talking about in the coming days?
They start a war, or they ask for more war. We are ready to fight. That's one line.
Yeah, they certainly talk that way currently. It would be interesting if they actually do that. Thank you. That's a really interesting. Shayan, What will you be looking for in the
So,
coming days?
a few things. Number one is the Prime Minister's question and answer session in the UK. I want to see how the opposition is going to formulate their thoughts against the government, by the government not supporting, even blockading the Strait of Hormuz. What what message they're going to have? That will usually tell us a little bit about the behind the scenes of what's going on. Number two is the severity of the United States holding the line at the Strait of Hormuz and blockading any goings and comings, and the reaction of the European governments. Number three, Trump's own up and down messaging, because on one hand, he's saying 34 ships have passed through. On one hand, he's saying we're blockading it. So a combination of what Trump is saying, and also this week in the United States Senate, there will be a hearing in the Foreign Affairs Committee. I'm not sure if that's going to take place or not. If it does, it will be must-watch TV to see how Marco Rubio navigates the waters. And the final thought that I would say is the messaging by the Islamic Republic. They keep right now pushing this narrative, like the Iranian ambassador, I think, in Thailand, had a message saying on Twitter saying Trump 2028 price per gallon. So their narrative that they want to bring it to the American people as to this is hurting you more than hurting us. I want to see how their messaging changes. But all in all, we have to remember that any one of us in any media capacity, we have to keep repeating the plight of the Iranian people.
Thank you. That was excellent. You're the only person I know who can answer that, come up with a question with a 6-point plan on the spot like that. I appreciate it. Just because you mentioned the UK, Keir Starmer and the UK, I actually had a question about it that we didn't quite have time for, but I wouldn't mind hearing from Ali on this. I've been very confused about how passive, if not passive aggressive, the UK has been about this, about joining an effort for a free Iran, etc. Do you want to shed any insight on that very briefly, Ali, from your perspective?
The UK's position all the time, right? Especially when it comes to labours, that's how they are doing it. And I think at this very moment, because Keir Starmer has a lot to do inside the country, including the economy, he thought if he just stays away from what was going on in Iran, he could survive. But as you could see, that was not the case, because the Strait of Hormuz and the fuel prices in the country, one of the most important things that it goes usually missing when it comes to the United Kingdom, because remember, the UK was one of the last countries which actually stated something about the protests in Iran, is the fact that the United Kingdom usually tries very hard to keep their embassy open in Iran. And they always wanted that. And because of that, they usually are the last people who actually try to say things in public, but that is the reason they didn't say much about the protests. When it comes to the Iranian protests in January and the mass killing of people, it was not even the Secretary of State who said anything. It was the minister, deputy, who said something about that. And now about the war, I think the United Kingdom thought if they shy away from it, if they stay away from the war, it will benefit the country. But actually it's the other way around, because the fuel prices are soaring, including the cost of living in this country. And now, again today, Sir Keir Starmer said, this is not our war and we are not going to participate.
Yeah, thanks for that perspective. Final word to you, Sadeq, in terms of what you're looking for this week as a barometer of where this situation might be going.
Yeah. So I look at the economics of it because we know there's always ideology driving this, but behind that is economics. There's no ideology that can be sustained without having some sort of an economic foundation. So that's why Strait of Hormuz is very key. If the U.S. keeps its promise to impose a blockade, that's $435 million per day that the Islamic Republic will lose, and they can't survive that. There's calculations for more than 13 days. So maybe there's a loop of truce and war until they can come to a deal. But at the end of the day, I think economically, the Islamic Republic is on the losing side. So the only question is whether that could be a staged, level of collapsing within the Islamic regime, or, overthrowing them from the outside, which is the less probable outcome. I would bet, I would put my baskets in the first, eggs in the first basket. That would be staged. But economically, because it's impossible, and geopolitically, because U.S. has long-term plans to counter China, and that's why the Persian Gulf and the Strait of Hormuz is the choke point of energy, where China gets most of its energy from, and the future of the world is AI, which is, again, very much reliant on data centers, are reliant on energy. So that's why it's not going to remain, the status quo is not going to remain as it is. And I don't think the Islamic Republic has, so much, they don't have a lot of cards, as Trump always says. They don't have the cards. I think Trump is right in that point.
Guys, I'm very appreciative of all three. I know you're all extremely busy, and you've all got a bunch of other commitments, including other media commitments. So I appreciate this. Thanks for making the time today, and I'm sure the audience does as well. And to be continued. Looking forward to having you all back soon. Merci.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Khudafiz. All right. Quite a panel. Big thanks to Ali and Sadeq and Shayan. A lot of provocative thoughts there. Always interested to hear from you. You can email us at info@roqemedia.com, or continue to post your comments anywhere on any of our platforms, that is, on YouTube, on Apple, on Telegram. I'm not sure if you can post comments on Spotify, but you certainly can on SoundCloud as well, Castbox maybe, and on Instagram. This is full time for this edition of Roqe. Thank you. Thank you to the core team who put this show together each week, twice a week right now, as part of our Iran Rises series. Savvy Roham Mar, the photo and video queen Tina Farahi, and super Padisa Sanjarani. Special thanks as well to Smart Pega, Charming Kimia, Talented Anahita, Methodical Kaveh, and the Rising Keon for all of your help. Thank you to all of you out there for supporting us, those of you who share our content, those of you who subscribe. If you're not a subscriber already and you haven't pressed that subscribe button, it's free on any of our platforms. Please do so we can let you know about when upcoming shows come out. You can find the show on Instagram at Roqe Media. You can find me on Instagram at Jian Ghomeshi. And as ever, in the immortal words of Uncle Behrang, Mizun Bashi.